Hello, everybody.
Hello.
This is Empowering Democracy. And my friend joining me for tonight is Dolores Piers. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here
Okay, it's a pleasure.
as we go over events.
Our topics for tonight are Trumpquake. Harris would not listen. Open secrets cuts. And Trump-flation. Those should be very interesting topics, I think. Uh, okay. Would you like to start off with any of the articles, Dee?
Oh, let me take a look. Oh, shoot, I spilled something. Grab the. Okay, let me look. Get to the comments. Okay, let me see. I'll go with LA Progressive. Let me see if I can get that. See, okay, let me see if I can get that up here.
Okay.
Oops. Trying to get over there. Okay. Let me see if I can get up here. Okay, I think. Okay. Let me. Well, I gotta bring it into your room.
Okay.
Let me see.
Okay. Present it, and I'll put it on the screen.
Okay. I see. I'm not sure how to do it.
Okay. I will bring it up then.
Okay, yeah, because I have it here, but I'm not sure how to get it for you to get it.
Okay. Uh, okay. So here we go.
Okay. Kamala Harris refused to listen on Palestine. And this is the LA Progressive.
Right.
And it's from Marjorie Cohn, November 8th of
Right.
2024.
And she normally publishes in Truth Out.
Oh, okay.
I suspect that this was picked up from Truth Out.
Okay. Okay. After refusing to call for an arms embargo, Harris lost to Trump, to the delight of Israel's right wing leaders. And we kept mentioning that over and over again, Joe.
Yes, we did. We kept talking about it, and we kept thinking that she was making a mistake. We understood why she was making a mistake, but Hubert Humphrey had made the same mistake in 1968. When
Mm,
it came to Vietnam, he took a long time to state, an independent position from Lyndon Johnson. It wasn't until the end of September that he did that. And then he came on fast in closing the gap with Nixon,
hmm
but it was too little too late.
Exactly. A little bit too late.
And he lost that. It was a very close election. if there had been a shift of some 30,000 votes among some of the states, he would have been the president instead of Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, certainly his failure to divorce himself from Johnson in time cost him the presidency in 1968.
Okay. Israel's right-wing regime is gleeful about Donald Trump's impending return to power in the United States. Various Israeli officials have hailed Trump's victory since Tuesday. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it, quote, history's greatest comeback. His new defense minister, Israel Katz, stated, quote, together, we'll strengthen the U.S.-Israeli alliance. Quote, God bless Trump, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said. Trump, quote, has the most pro-Israel record of any president, according to Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to Washington. Quote, the hope is here that there'll be more of the same. A majority of Israelis support Trump. When Trump was president, he repeatedly capitulated to Israel's Zionist regime. He unlawfully recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, forcefully declared that Israel was sovereign over the occupied Golan Heights in Syria, and said that, I know, right? And said that Israeli settlements on Palestinian land were legal despite their violation of international law and prior U.S. policy to the contrary. Trump broke Abraham Accords, a series of agreements with some Arab states to establish diplomatic and economic ties with Israel. With all the latitude Trump offered Israel, its violence towards Palestinians has only escalated since he left office. Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, which continues unabated, has killed more than 43,000 Palestinians, which we're saying it's more likely about 300,000 Palestinians, and displaced nearly all of the 2.3 million residents of Gaza. But although most Americans, an overwhelming number of Democrats favor restricting or limiting the weapons that the U.S. provides to Israel, the Biden administration has continued to arm it to the teeth. Unfortunately, during her campaign for president, Kamala Harris refused to say that, if elected, she would quit sending arms to Israel until the genocide stopped. 2 days before the election, while campaigning in the swing state of Michigan, Harris stated, quote, I will do everything in my power to end the war in Gaza, but she provided no specifics. It was too little, too late. We may never know what role Harris's refusal to condemn Israel's genocide and call for the arms embargo played in her election loss.
Okay, I'd like to comment here, that one. Okay, I think we do know that her refusal hurt her, but it was not actually the cause of her loss.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the cause of her loss, okay, in Michigan, okay, in that state, which would have made the election closer. But okay, okay, I think the main factor in her loss was that she ran a campaign that was offering very little uh, to the working class and very little to the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay, I think if she had run, okay, on Medicare for all, you know, if she had run on a job guarantee, a federal job guarantee, even just those two things, that she probably would have won.
Mm-hmm.
Because, first of all, a federal job guarantee has her giving something, to people in the rural areas of the United States, not just the urban areas and the suburban areas, but it gets the government um, into the rural areas to offer people a job, and it wakes up the economy, okay, the rural areas. She could have campaigned on that, gone into the rural areas, explained, the virtues of the federal job guarantee. I know she would have cut in a lot into red state votes. And I think in the swing states, that she would have swept all the states, especially if she was running on Medicare for all also.
Right. And hmm, eh, yeah, and eh, the younger voters, she lost the younger voters because of Biden. And had she been able to offer something, and would people have believed because of what the Democrats always say and then don't deliver? You don't know. But now that the Demo well, will they learn? Because this is basically the reason why they lost was because of not, where the economics are concerned, they've just alienated their base, and when we're going after suburban Republicans,
Yes.
they didn't care about their base
Or it seemed that they didn't care about their base. They were campaigning as if they did not care about their base.
because they thought their base was going to be there no matter what.
Yes. And their base showed them they weren't going to be there, no matter what. And furthermore, their base showed them the same thing in 2016.
Hmm.
So they had plenty of time to learn, that particular lesson. But
They didn't.
yeah, people keep doing the same thing. I think they were lucky to win in 2020. And the only reason why they did was Trump's performance on COVID. I think that was the key thing in 2020 that produced a victory for them.
Right, and people actually came out and voted.
Yes, yes,
You
they
know,
came out and voted. Uh, I was reading something today that indicated that Trump got 74 million votes in 2020 and 72.5 million votes in this election. Biden got 81.5 million votes in 2020, and Harris got about 67 million votes,
hmm,
in this election. So Harris fell short of Biden's totals by 14.5 million votes, and Trump fell short of his total by about 1.5 million votes, and he still won the popular vote by 5 points.
mhm. Right, and when we say two, like, we have to look at the fact it's 4 years passed, and those 4 years, there's people that, had passed on, voters that passed on, and then in that 4 years, you have new voters.
That's right, Jay. And the new voters needed to be given something by her in this campaign.
Right.
And they were concerned about the wars also.
Yes, they were furious and out protesting, and the way people were treated on the college campuses as well.
Yes, yes, that's right. And some of them became first time voters.
Mhm.
Okay, they were treated badly. They were concerned over the wars, but they were also concerned over having economic opportunity. And the Democrats weren't offering economic opportunity. They talked a lot about opportunity, that the economy, is going to be an opportunity economy, but she never said how she was going to make it be, an opportunity economy.
Right, and when they talked about economy, um, a lot of people they just know what they know what they see in their towns. They see the price of groceries. They see that they're struggling. They see prices the way the prices have gone up, and to them, The uh, economy is horrible.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how Wall Street's doing.
Right. And I think for the working class and for the lower middle class, I think the economy was horrible.
Hmm.
Okay. I know it was good then for just more the billionaires and the Wall Streeters.
Yeah, for them, they mm,
For them, it was good, but for how much of the rest of the economy it was good is a question.
right. And if you had investments in the military industrial complex and the weaponry and all that stuff, your stocks went up.
Yes, that's true. Okay. And generally speaking, it was pretty good for the Bitcoiners as well, and pretty good for the stock market.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it was pretty good for unemployment, but uh, the problem is that the unemployment statistics don't really take into account the kinds of wages that were being paid. There were a lot of people working two and three jobs, in the economy, who were working at either minimum wage or close to minimum wage.
Hmm.
That's why they were working two or three jobs. That's a hard life. A lot of people are
Yes, it is.
leading a hard life, and they were unhappy.
Right. And a lot of people, yeah, they're working two, three jobs and they're living in their cars or they're living in tents or RVs.
Yes, and they're not happy.
Right.
And the Democrats failed to recognize that they were not happy.
Exactly.
Okay, please go on.
Okay. Green Party candidate Jill Stein, who campaigned on the issue of ending the genocide, won 22% of the vote in Dearborn, Michigan, a city with a majority of Arab American population. Harris won 28% and Trump won 47%. Hussein Dabaya, a Lebanese American political consultant in the Detroit area, said the Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, a Democrat and Palestinian American, significantly outperformed Harris in Dearborn. She received 9,600 more votes than Harris.
It's also ironic, I think, that Harris was the congresswoman like, who proposed the bill. Okay, I forget if she did it in 2020. I think she might have done it under Trump, but um, um, she proposed a bill that included the federal job guarantee program,
Okay.
and also included that the cost of that program would be funded by platinum coins.
Hmm. See, now,
Okay, so if Kamala had run on that,
right. And yeah, like you said, separated herself from Biden.
yes,
Yes, and run on that, and the DNC allow her to run on that.
well, the DNC couldn't have stopped her, from running on that. Now, the when she was the candidate, she was to a certain extent, she was running the DNC,
Okay.
at least at that point.
And it's a matter of them actually applying it, the Democrats applying it if she won, that they would be doing that, the federal job guarantee, and they would be talking about it and all. But
Yes,
it would have been a good thing. It would have been a good thing because it would have been really introducing it to society in a larger level, larger
yes,
outreach.
no, and there would have been a lot of talking about it in the campaign. Would have been controversial. The Republicans would have been against it. Uh, uh, the Democrats for it. It would have been an education for people, I think.
Yeah, it would have been definitely. Hmm. Yeah, Biden really messed things up.
He really did.
During the Democratic primaries, nearly 1 million voters, including many Arab, Muslim, and young and progressive voters in several states, voted uncommitted in protest against the Biden administration's complicity in Israel's genocide. On July 24th, Harris did refrain from presiding over the joint session of Congress as Netanyahu delivered a strident address thanking the Biden administration for its support as Israel slaughtered Palestinians. The next day, Harris met with Netanyahu and called for long-term ceasefire. It's time for this war to end and end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination, she said in a public remarks after the meeting.
She did.
Yeah, and it would have been nice if the U.S. stopped sending, if they would have had the arms embargo and they would have told Netanyahu, it's over.
Yes.
Harris also stated, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, and how it does so matters. She had, quote, serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians, and images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, she added. Quote, we cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent. But Harris refused to distance herself from Joe Biden's support for Israel's genocide. In October, Sonny Hostin, co-host of ABC's The View, asked Harris, quote, "What, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?" Instead of distinguishing herself from the Biden administration, Harris responded, quote, "There is not a thing that comes to mind."
Yes, that was a really missed opportunity.
It was.
Yeah, Sonny Hostin laid out a softball.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's at an August campaign rally in Detroit, Harris curtly shut down pro-Palestinian protesters, stating, quote, "You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking." And that's coming back. You see a lot of people having different memes and posting that about "I'm speaking."
Yes, I know. I know that was a bad thing to say.
Leaders of the Uncommitted National Movement, a group behind the push to get voters to lodge a Democratic primary protest vote, spoke with Harris briefly at the Detroit rally. Quote, Michigan voters want to support you, but we need a policy that will save lives in Gaza right now. I meet with community members every day in Michigan who are losing tens and hundreds of family members in Gaza. Right now, we need an arms embargo, Leila Elabad, co-founder of Uncommitted, told Harris. All right, so, and we've said that over and over again, people are losing family members.
I
And
know.
it's serious.
Yes, I know. And then the Democrats send politicians to talk to these same people. Okay, and they simply talked, nonsense to them. They did not acknowledge, that they were losing family members.
Right, in now time, and, not, but what gets me is they always go back to October 7th, and they always, send emotions, towards what happened on October 7th, but don't show empathy or anything or
For
some
what's happened since October 7th.
exactly.
Yes.
Elabad also represented the uncommitted movement at the Democratic National Convention later in August to demand a Palestinian speaker be allowed to give an address on the main stage. Although the parents of an American Israeli hostage held by Hamas addressed the convention, a Palestinian American woman was not allowed to deliver remarks. If Trump had been president during the past 4 years instead of Biden, he likely also would have supported the genocide. His unbridled backing of Israel was evident when he said The Israelis should, quote, finish what they started and, quote, get it over with fast. Trump apparently favors ethnic cleansing of all Palestinians from Gaza. But Israel is conducting genocide on Biden's watch. It is little solace for those who seek to end it to know that Trump would also have sent billions of dollars in weapons to the Israeli regime. Harris's refusal to say she would stop arming Israel during the genocide cost her votes. Reem Abulhak is a Pennsylvania organizer with No Ceasefire, No Vote PA, a group that sought an arms embargo pledge from Harris. Abulhak was concerned that a vote for Harris would set a precedent whereby the Democratic Party ignores its constituents who oppose human rights violations. Abulhak held out until Election Day, hoping, in vain, that Harris would make a last-minute change in policy. Quote, I entered the voting booth and found myself unable to stop crying, Abulhak told The Intercept. All I could see was the face of a child in Jabalia, a city in northern Gaza, holding the body of their younger sibling who was killed over the weekend. I voted down the ballot but left the top of the ticket blank. We will never know how many voters had similar reactions. What we do know is that Trump is now the president elect and that he will take office for a second term on January 20th, 2025. It is incumbent on those who seek to end Israel's genocide and illegal occupation of Palestinian territory to redouble their efforts in opposition to it. The boycott, divestment, sanctions (BDS) movement is a valuable tool to challenge the occupation. In 2005, 170 Palestinian civil organizations called for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. They described BDS as, quote, nonviolent punitive measures to last until Israel fully complies with international law by 1. Ending its occupation and colonization of all Arab lands and dismantling its barrier wall. 2. Recognizing the fundamental rights of the Arab and Palestinian citizens of Israel to full equality and respecting, protecting, and promoting the right of Palestinian refugees to return to their land as stipulated in UN General Assembly 194. BDS has been so effective that several anti-boycott laws have been enacted at the federal and state levels to prevent the American people from exercising their First Amendment right to boycott. The IGO Anti-Boycott Act, which has passed the House and is pending in the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, would expand an existing anti-boycott law to include some boycotts imposed by international government organizations.
Okay, I guess I have to say that I find that really reprehensible to pass laws in violation of the Constitution
Exactly.
to stop a boycott, uh, to expand of the existing law to include some boycotts imposed by international governmental organizations. If there are boycotts, for example, sanctions that are entered into by the United Nations, by treaty, we are signatories to the UN.
Mm-hmm.
And if they order sanctions, it is not something voluntary for us.
Right.
We should be supporting those sanctions,
We should be, yes.
international law. Now, many people keep on forgetting here, okay, that international law is the law of the land in the United States
Mm-hmm.
because we have signed treaties backing international law. We may violate those treaties every day, but that doesn't make it right that we
No,
do
it
so.
doesn't. It doesn't. And what's going on with Yemen, we shouldn't be attacking Yemen for following international law, and here we are.
Yes.
Strategic and principled grassroots and civil society action from city councils, trade unions, and institutions worldwide has never been as essential as it is today, not just to end the genocide, but also to save the world from an imminent might takes right error. Yeah,
Yes, which is what we're living in now.
exactly. And it's awful.
Okay. This post also reposted with permission from Truth Out.
Yes. And that was very good. And the thing too with BDS, I mean, how do they tell me where I can shop and where I can't shop? What products I can buy and what I can't buy? I myself um look to see where the products come from.
Yeah, right. And so do I.
Right. And we have that right, and the government shouldn't penalize us.
Yes, in fact, uh, okay, I quit buying a particular brand of hummus at Costco because I suspected the origin was Israel.
Right.
So
Right. And we have the right to do that.
we absolutely have the right to do that. Okay, let's move on to the second piece. I
Okay.
will take that. We've got some comments from a Facebook user.
Cool.
I think we probably know the Facebook user, but somehow they didn't want to use their regular account. I inferred that because the Facebook user says, hi, both.
Mhm.
And that's something that was done by only one person heretofore.
Mhm.
And she says, I think it's a she, hi, everyone. She says, I just saw a man killed himself and his family in Minnesota. He used to rant about Trump. Oh, that's awful.
Mhm.
Robert Copeland says DNC gave the election to Donald Trump. Yeah, I agree, Robert.
Yeah, they did.
And he says votes are still to be counted here in California. Yes, I know. There are votes for the House that are still to be counted. Last I looked there today, the Republicans uh, had 216 votes, and the Democrats had 209 votes in races that had been called. There was still uh, 10 races to be called in California, and the Democrats still had a narrow path to victory in the House. Okay, but they were going to have to pick up, uh, what I guess what was it, 9 of the 10 votes. That was still out. Okay, so they had only a very small chance. But whether they take over the House or not, there's going to be a very slim margin in the House. It could be 218 to 217, or if the Republicans continue and take over the House, it might be something like 221 to 214, or something like that, or 222 to 213. But it's going to be a very small swing of votes. And in that situation, with the Republicans having the Freedom Caucus to contend with, it's going to be difficult for them to dominate the House.
And the one thing I found interesting too was in Arizona, that Carrie Lake, that the Republicans didn't want her. They were encouraging people not to vote for her, and she didn't win.
Right, she didn't win. She came close this time, but in the end, uh, she lost by a point or two, and the race was called for Ruben Gallego. So Facebook user says the Democrats holding their ears at the DNC convention didn't help either. Yeah.
No, exactly.
And Robin Copeland said in 2020, Democratic primary, Kamala Harris came in a distant third place in her own state of California. I know she did. And she had to retire from the primaries early. Never even got to Iowa because she was doing so badly. Facebook user said, I don't think it was her idea to run for the presidency. She was urged on, pushed even, to be the face of the Democratic Party. Obama, Clinton, Pelosi, Schumer, her hubby thought it would be a good idea. I think they thought it would be a good idea because it was the most straightforward way for them to use the campaign finance funds that had been raised. If she dropped out as the vice president, if she stayed in as the vice president for Biden after he dropped out, she would be able to use those funds. And they thought that it was very, very important. That was one reason why they decided for her.
And his numbers were really bad, and
Yes,
that's why they knew they had to do something. They had to act quick.
yes, they did. But actually, they acted too slowly. That's why they
They
had
did.
so
They
quick.
did. Yeah,
Which
because
they should have acted sometime in the spring, so she would have had a full opportunity to run.
exactly.
So Facebook users said to me it was a sign they were not taking their own campaign seriously, so sure they would win. If they felt that way, it was the height of stupidity.
Definitely it was because the numbers early on were telling them.
Yeah, there was going to be a problem. Facebook users said people pushed over the edge. Yeah, I think people were pushed over the edge. Okay, let's get to the second of our piece of our topics for tonight. And that's topic is Trumpquake from an article by Pepe Escobar. And I am sharing it now.
Yes, I can see it.
Good. I forgot to share this on Facebook. I better do that before I
Yeah,
leave.
I just went and shared around on Facebook, and then I'll go over to X and share the X link.
Okay. Thank you. I will
Mm,
share this now here. They're probably getting a pretty decent audience on Facebook at this point.
okay.
Yeah, I'm playing myself again. I shut that off.
Okay.
And shut this down before things go crazy here.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
okay, where am I? I got to share Trumpquake again. Yeah, I figured it was you, Evelina. Alana says, I've been listening on the TV, but saying hello here now. Hi, Alana. Nice to see you. So, this piece is called Trumpquake. It is Pepe Escobar's take on the results of the election. It appeared at, there's a picture of a coin, United States of America, in God we trust. With I don't know what kind of bird that is, but I don't think it's the American eagle, is it?
No, and
Distorted 2024, and there are Trump and Harris. Fasten your seatbelts, says Pepe. Whatever happens, Trump quake is bound to be a bumpy ride.
mhm.
On the political Richter scale, that was a killer. Literally, what was supposed to be a liberal totalitarian show was brutally, unceremoniously swept out of the park, any park. Even before Election Day, critical thinking was aware of the stakes. With fraud, Kamala wins. With no fraud, Trump wins. I think that might have been unkind by Pepe. There were, at best, failed attempts at fraud. The key question still remains: what does the U.S. deep state really want? And he says, my inbox is infested with loads of weepy reports from the U.S. think tank land, wondering in disbelief why Kamala could possibly lose. It's quite straightforward. Apart from her sheer incompetence, come utter mediocrity, literally cackling out loud. Oh, I guess
Hmm.
that Pepe found her cackling to be unattractive. So he goes on. Okay, the legacy of the administration she was part of is ghastly, all the way from crash test dummy. Uh, Here he's, of course, referring to Biden. He's the crash test dummy. To Little Butcher Blinky. That's a that's a new nickname for Tony. Instead of bothering to care about the abysmal state of affairs at every level concerning that mythical entity, quote, the American people, unquote, they chose to invest everything on a neocon manufactured proxy war to inflict a, quote, strategic defeat, unquote, on Russia. Stealing Russian assets, unleashing a tsunami of sanctions, shipping an array of Wunderwaffen. The Wunderwaffen, for those who don't know, are wonder weapons. The weaponization of Ukraine led to countless Ukrainian dead and the inevitable, fast approaching cosmic humiliation of NATO in the black soil of Novorossiya. I hope everybody recognizes that Novorossiya is the part of Russia originally conquered by Catherine the Great in 1776. Okay, and Novorossiya, of course, translated to English, is New Russia. So New Russia was brought into Russia in the same year as the independence of the United States was declared. So that is something of an irony. New Russia is not exactly New Russia after all. But anyway, the Russians are taking New Russia back as we speak. They invested everything to support a genocide in Gaza, conducted with a huge arsenal, okay, of American weapons, 11th round coded ethnic cleansing, cum extermination op, directed by a bunch of Talmudic psychos and marketed under the quote, rule based international order, unquote, spewed out by Butcher Blinky in every bilateral or multilateral gathering. It's no wonder that West Asia and the wider global South soon got the message of what may happen to anyone daring to go against the hegemon's, quote, interests, unquote. Thus, the counterpunch, the strengthening of BRICS and BRICS Plus, celebrated for all the world to see 2 weeks ago in Kazan. At least this administration had a merit, strengthening the bonds between all major, quote, existential threats, unquote, to the hegemon, three BRICS, Russia, China, Iran, plus the indomitable DPRK. That, of course, is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, for those who don't know. All that in contrast with a meager tactical victory, which may not last long, the absolute vassalization of Europe.
Hmm.
Interesting word, vassalization. Hanging Ukraine on Europe's neck. Of course, foreign policy does not win the U.S. elections. Americans themselves will have to solve their dilemmas or plunge into civil war. As for the bulk of the global majority, it harbors no illusions. Trumpquake's coded message is that the Zionist lobby wins again, perhaps not so unceremoniously when we consider all strands of neocons and ziocons. Wall Street wins again. BlackRock's Larry Fink said so even before Election Day.
Hmm.
And prominent silos across the deep state also win again. This begs a modified question. What if Trump feels emboldened enough after January 25th? Maybe he meant January 20th and not January 25th. To launch a Stalinist purge of the deep state. But Election Day proceeded nearly simultaneously with the Valdai Club annual meeting in Sochi, which is uh, one of the Black Sea resorts, where the superstar, not surprisingly, was eminent geopolitician Sergei Karaganov. Of course, he directly referred to the empire's forever wars. Quote, "We are living in biblical times," unquote. And
Ugh.
even before Trumpquake, Karaganov stressed calmly, quote, "We will defeat the West and Ukraine without resorting to um, 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 uh, ultimate means," unquote. And that quote will provide for a peaceful withdrawal of the U.S., which will become a normal, unquote, superpower. Europe, meanwhile, quote again, will move to the sidelines of history, unquote. All of that, spot on, says Pepe. But then Karaganov introduced a startling concept. Quote, "The war in Ukraine is a replacement of World War III. Afterwards, we can agree on some kind of order in Eurasia," unquote. That would be the, quote, "indivisibility of security," unquote, proposed by Putin to Washington and rejected on December 2021, part of the, quote, "Greater Eurasia Partnership," unquote, that was conceptualized by Karaganov himself. The problem, though, is his conclusion. Quote, "Let's make the Ukrainian war the last major war in the 21st century." Hey, there's the rub. The real major war is actually Eretz Israel versus the axis of resistance in West Asia. Let's have a quick pit stop in Europe before getting to the meat of this matter. Trumpquake is all set to hang Ukraine on Europe's neck like a larger than life albatross. The shorthand, exit American money financing the Born to Lose Project Ukraine. Enter German money filling the coffers of the weapons lobby inside the Ray McGovern coined the Mickey Mats, military, industrial, congressional, intelligence, media, academic think tank complex, otherwise known as the Mickey Mat. We caught that. U.S. Treasury has issued an internal memorandum valid until April 30th, 2025, when Trump will already be 3 months in power, allowing transitions with Russian banks on anything related to oil, natural gas, timber, and any form of uranium. As for the gullible Brussels run EU, they will pay the heavy load on weaponizing rump Ukraine
Mm-hmm.
while accepting wave after wave of new refugees and saying goodbye to any of their funds already invested in that humongous black hole. And Pepe says, beware of that Tony Soprano wannabe. Trumpquake, if taken at face value, is bound to further weaponize the US dollar. Trump has threatened on the record to blacklist any nation that uses other currencies for international trade. BRICS and BRICS Plus partners have registered it, and that will accelerate the testing of all models in the BRICS lab, leading towards a multi layered alternative trade settlement system. BRICS and the global majority also know that Trump, in fact, signed off on Nord Stream sanctions when he referred recently to, quote, killing, unquote, Nord Stream. And they also know he did less than zero during Trump 1.0 to find a solution for the proxy war in Ukraine. Now we come to the clincher.
Okay.
Trump personally destroyed the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal brokered by the P5+1, the five permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany. Moscow and Beijing know perfectly well how this further destabilization of the whole of West Asia was in conjunction to the Trump ordered assassination of General Soleimani, which started what I termed the Raging 20s. Last but not least, Trump brokered the bombastically named, quote, deal of the century, unquote, the Abraham Accords, which, if implemented, will forever bury any possibility of an Israel/Palestine two-state solution. The deal, which may be considered as nefarious as the 1917 Balfour Declaration, may be in a coma. But MBS's WhatsApp pal Jared Kushner is back and will certainly renew the pressure. MBS still hasn't made up his mind when it comes to BRICS. Trump will go bonkers if MBS increasingly starts to navigate the Petro One way. All that brings us to a supremely nefarious character, Tony Soprano wannabe Mike Pompeo, who is a serious candidate to become
Oh,
head
he's not.
of Iran. Yes, I heard that today also, that he's not a serious candidate, that Trump has said, no Pompeo,
Exactly.
no Pompeo. That is a wonderful decision made by Donald Trump. And let's hope he's not going to ruin it by appointing someone equally bad. Now, that would spell major trouble ahead. Pompeo was CIA Director and Secretary of State under Trump 1.0. He is an uber hawk on Russia, China, and especially Iran. Arguably, the pressing question from now on is whether Trump, whose life was spared by God in his own interpretation, does what is expected of him by his uber wealthy donors, appoints Pompeo and similar gangsters for key posts, and invests in Israel's war against Iran and the axis of resistance. If that's the case, he won't have to worry about another failed sniper.
No.
But if he really tries to run his own independent game, there's no question he will be a dead man walking. So the whole global majority waits with bated breath. How will Trumpquake translate in the geopolitical MAGA sphere? Sure, bets focus on extensive use of private military companies, PMCs for foreign policy, quote, uh, 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 commissions, unquote, and selected targeted military interventions, quote unquote. Targets can include any global South player from Mexico to, quote, secure the border, unquote, to Venezuela, the Monroe Doctrine, quote, securing the oil, Yemen to, quote, secure the Red Sea, unquote, and of course, Iran, a massive bombing campaign to, quote, secure Israel, unquote. Of course, that didn't happen. At least it wasn't successful. In a nutshell, no new wars as Trump promised, just a few targeted incursions plus hybrid war on maximum overdrive. Brazil, watch out. Trumpquake will not tolerate a truly sovereign BRICS member, increasing its global south by influence in the quote Western Hemisphere unquote. Fasten your seatbelts. Whatever happens, Trumpquake is bound to be a bumpy ride.
Hmm.
So, how did you find that one, Dee? Was that a good one for you?
Yes, in a lot of areas it was good, and there's just information that's new for us um, when it comes to Trump, promises that he made, and the fact that his son-in-law from Tiffany Trump, son-in-law's father is a Lebanese American, and he has been involved with the Trump campaign. The communication with Trump and communicating with Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, and there was promises that were made that there was going to be a two-state solution, or Trump was going to try to, with that angle it was concerned. And they helped. Arab Americans for Trump was started, and speaking, all around the country. So hopefully, he did. From what I understand, also, is that Ivanka and her husband are not going to be involved in this administration. And before then, he just left everything to the other administration. He left everything to Ivanka's husband.
Yes, he did.
Right. So Trump pretty much stayed out of it. Everything the son-in-law said was a go. This time, it's going to be different, and we'll just have to wait and see.
So, we will just have to wait and see. But it may be this time it will be his other son in law who will be making a $5 billion deal with the Saudis.
Mhm.
Who
Well,
knows? If one son in law did it, maybe the other son in law will be trying to do the same thing.
well, it's the son-in-law's father is the one that is involved and more involved with all of this.
Yes.
So, and I do know with Saudi Arabia, what their stance has been is that, any agreement they want a Palestinian state.
Yes.
And we know that Israel doesn't, but Israel's they've got themselves in a mess now anyway. Uh, they've lost a lot of standing that they used to have.
Oh, I know. They really are in a mess. And they're insecure.
Hmm.
And they're getting pounded every day and every night.
Right. And when Netanyahu is concerned, the people are furious. They see it. They see that he doesn't care about them and that he's never cared about the hostages. The people around him don't care about the hostages. So people are really seeing, especially it's been so long, and understanding the hostages are starving, they're being bombed just like the people in Gaza are.
Yep. Very bad.
Yes. Okay, you have some comments here.
Let's take the comments.
Okay.
Robert Copeland says, uh, well, actually, Facebook here. User says, She says, wonder why I'm operating as Facebook user when it's moi, Evelina.
Ooh,
And Dee says, are you not feeling well tonight?
oh, I'm feeling okay. Just, somewhat tired, but I'm feeling okay.
And Facebook user notes, okay, that Cora Emmanuel is here too. Hi again.
Yes, hello, Cora. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Cora. And Lana says the bones of the dead eagle. Wow. Yeah,
Wow.
I didn't recognize it as the bones of the dead eagle, but that is probably what it was. Glad you picked up on that, Lana. And Facebook user says, great name, by the way, where from?
Yeah.
She says Nordic, maybe. Yeah, maybe Nordic. Robert says, does this article got to do with Donald Trump? Well, it has to do with the situation that Donald Trump has uh, uh, created. Robert says, I put Pepe in the same category with Scott Ritter as I can't listen to him. I'm sorry, Robert. Those are two of my favorite people. And Facebook user said, Jared will be busy investing in beachfront property in Gaza if they ever get to that point.
Right. And like we said, Daniela Weiss, and there was a whole group. We had seen there was they talked about it at different synagogues about buying property over on the West Bank and then talking about the possibility of Gaza. I mean, Jared wasn't the first one, but he's the one that seems to be getting all the attention. But months prior to Jared even opening his mouth, you had the settlers right outside Gaza looking, to settle the north. And
Yeah, looking in to see what, just rubbing their hands together.
yeah, Daniela Weiss with her boat tours while people are being bombed.
Yes, amazing. Okay, so we have two more. Which one of those would you like?
Okay, let me take a look. I have to go all the way down. I didn't realize that. I thought there was just three, but it's four. Okay.
Yeah, there's one about open secrets, and there's one about Trumpflation.
Okay, I'll do the common dreams one.
Okay, that's the one about open secrets.
Okay.
Okay, do you want me to present it, put it up?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so there it is.
Okay.
Can you see it sufficiently to read it?
Yeah, well, I put it up for myself. I just couldn't put it in the room.
Oh, okay, good. Good.
Yeah. Okay. After 16 billion election, nonprofit tracking money in politics lays off one third of its staff. This is by Jessica Corbett, November 8th, 2024. Quote, this is an absolutely devastating development. Oops, development on the precipice of the next administration, said one journalist. Journalists and other critics of how money influences U.S. politics expressed alarm and disappointment in response to Friday reporting that shortly after the nation's latest election, the research nonprofit Open Secrets had to lay off a third of its staff. Citing a current staffer, Politico's Daniel Lippman revealed that Open Secrets, quote, laid off 10 employees yesterday due to financial difficulties and, quote, much of the research team were among the casualties, which continued around a third of the group's total headcount. According to Politico Playbook newsletter, Executive Director Hillary Abrazeth wrote an email to supporters that, quote, Open Secrets remains committed to its mission, serving as the trusted authority on money in American politics. But our task has become more difficult as groups have opted to fund a partisan outcome rather than nonpartisan democratic infrastructure. She said in a subsequent email to Playbook that the layoffs were, quote, a necessary first step to make our organization sustainable, and that she had, quote, no doubt that our team will continue to produce the high quality data that the public has come to rely on. With a mission, quote, to serve as a trusted authority on money in American politics, Open Secrets envisions a country in which citizens, quote, use data on money in politics to create a more vibrant, representative, and responsive democracy. In response to the layoffs, numerous reporters took to social media on Friday to share how they, like Common Dreams, have used what National Public Radio media correspondent Dan Folkenflik called that, quote, an invaluable resource for many a journalist and researcher, utterly nonpartisan, but a source for transparency about money in politics now under financial threat. Quote, terrible news, declared NerdWallet data journalist Joe Girardi. Quote, the folks at Open Secrets have helped me so many times on stories. The organization does such vital work. Other reactions included Wall Street Journal reporter Maggie Severns. Quote, Open Secrets is an important resource on money in politics that is terrible to see. Politico Deputy National Editor Zach Montellaro, quote, this stinks. Open Secrets is a great resource for campaign finance, data, and following the money. Dig Day senior reporter Marty Swant, sad news for a critical team that helps shed light on dark money in politics. McClatchy and Miami Herald investigative reporter Ben Whiter, quote, this is such sad news. Open Secrets is such an important resource for journalists and anyone who cares about money and politics. The New Republic breaking news writer Ellie Quinlan Hogtalling, quote, this is absolutely devastating development on the precipice of the next administration. Republican President-elect Donald Trump, known for, quote, outright scandals and blatant corruption during his first term, defeated Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris on Election Day earlier this week. The GOP also seized control of the U.S. Senate and is on track to win a majority in the House of Representatives. In a Tuesday analysis, Open Secrets, Albert Cerna Jr. and Anna Massogolia detailed how about 16 billion, quote, went on to influence federal elections and another 4.6 billion was raised by state candidates, party committees, and ballot measures committees for 2023 and 2024 elections. The pair also highlighted Tuesday that this cycle, quote, has broken outside spending with about 4.5 billion from independent groups such as super political action committees. Dark money accounted for over 1 billion in total contributions to organizations like super PACs.
Uh, I found that that 16 billion figure
Yeah,
went to influence federal elections, and another 4.6 billion raised by state candidates, party committees, and ballot measure committees for 2023 and 2024. That's really an astonishing figure. It's $20.6 billion on these elections
that's crazy.
in 2023 and 2024. It's unprecedented
It
and
is.
crazy.
Top donors had outside influence, and donations to support or defeat various ballot measures have also set, quote, several records.
Yes.
So we're seeing that, I don't know, this is just like a case just to have publicly funded, you know, not to have outside sources. I mean, not to have it so privatized because
Yeah, but we run into trouble. We can't,
control it.
as long as the Congress people are benefiting from all these contributions,
Mhm.
they're not going to put a stop to the contributions.
No, they're not. It's just
So
not
the
fair at all.
only way to put a stop to the contributions is if we're able to develop a dump the corruption campaign.
Right. Okay. Jimmy Claudia, a former Open Secrets reporting fellow, now at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, said Friday in response to the layoffs that, quote, "I'm devastated for my former colleagues and shocked that this news comes just days after the most expensive election in U.S. history."
Yes,
Investigative journalist David Leventhal, who also previously worked for the organization, said that, quote, "This is heartbreaking news, not just for us Open Secrets alums, but anyone who cares about genuinely nonpartisan research and reporting, plus political hashtag governmental transparency." It is terrible.
it is absolutely terrible. Of course, it's also terrible for us uh, insofar as we want to return to a dump the corruption campaign because we rely heavily on open secrets
Yes, we do.
for that particular campaign.
Okay, Healthcare Across Borders Executive Director Jody Jacobson said Friday that this is unacceptable and unconscionable and shows how perverse our funding streams are. We can sink over $1 billion into a political campaign, but not fund one of the most critical tools of accountability at a time when we need it most.
One thing I saw today, just a headline, said that Harris campaign had spent over $1 billion, but it was in debt.
Yes.
It ended up in debt after spending $1 billion. Incredible.
It is. It's terrible. It really is. And this is what the country's come to.
Yeah.
Some responded to the layoff news with calls for donations to Open Secrets. Filmmaker Adam McKay declared, quote, "Legacy news media has all but blacked out money's outsized control of government, quotes, government. So this is one of the few places to find out who is bribing your candidate or representative. Donate if you can ASAP." Issue 1 research director Michael Beckel said, quote, "Care about being able to follow the money in politics? Today would be a good day to donate or become a monthly donor. Open Secrets DC, one of the best groups around for understanding the flow of money in state and federal elections." And that's the truth.
Yes, that's the absolute truth. That it is. It's one of the best groups around for that, and an indispensable tool.
Oh, it is. People have a right to know all this.
Of course, we do. Okay, Evelina says Jared will be busy investing in beach property in Gaza, so he thinks that's the reason why he won't be involved in the new government. He said he didn't want to participate so he could make more money in Gaza. Wonderful.
I just know Ivanka had said, when he started running, I mean, or even after the last time, they wanted no part of it. They wanted no part of it. They wanted to get their family together, their family life, and plus they lost a lot of friendships and you know, just their circle of friends. I mean, everything was disarray after the election. I mean, after them spending time in Washington.
Oh, I see. So they paid a price.
Yes, they did.
Okay. So let's head on to the next one,
Okay.
which is it's on Trumpflation. What is Trumpflation? We are about to find out. So this is an article in the American Prospect. I'd love to get rid of this ad at the bottom, but I can't see a way to do it. Anyway, oh, maybe there's a faint little X over here. No, I guess not. This is an article by Robert Kuttner, who used to be the editor of the American Prospect, but of course now the new editor, not so new anymore, is David Dayen. But Kuttner says, get ready for Trumpflation. Trump won the election in part because of a backlash against consumer price inflation on Biden's watch. Several Trump policies will make inflation much worse. So I thought Biden could have avoided the problem of inflation himself if he had done something about price gouging and if he had given people a $2,000 stimulus check to handle the inflation. At least in 2022, that probably would have been enough money for most families to handle it. So this one was written on November 7th by Kuttner. To the extent that supply concerns have eased and corporate pricing tricks and traps have been restrained, it is the result of Biden's regulatory policies that will be ended by Trump. Well, it may also be due to the reestablishment of some supply chains, I'm sure. But anyway, there's a version of the next 4 years where Donald Trump is convinced by advisors at Mar-a-Lago to do nothing, inherit a great economy, declare victory, and reap the benefits. God bless you, honey. But Trump is almost certainly too convinced of his own ideas to do that. And the various hangers-on in Trump world, too, ready for their own corrupt paydays to allow that to happen. So instead, the likely outcome is an inflation rebound. How will Trump's policies spike inflation? Let us count the ways. As the prospect has extensively reported, much of the increased cost to consumers since COVID has been the result of supply chain dysfunction and corporate price rigging, otherwise known as corporate price gouging. To the extent that supply concerns have eased and corporate pricing tricks and traps have been restrained, it is the result of Biden's regulatory policies that will be ended by Trump. It is. It's not the result of what the Federal Reserve did. It had nothing to do with what the Federal Reserve did. They had a real problem restraining inflation because the more the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, the more inflation we had. To the extent that Trump kills or suspends Biden's several investment programs that were aimed at securing and managing supply chain spot shortages, will also spike inflation. A revived Federal Trade Commission and Justice Department anti-Trump division crack down on predatory tactics. Police Department of Transportation, better late than never, restrained, uh, uh, restrained abusive airline pricing gimmicks. But executive orders began to reduce drug price. Biden orders forgave student debt. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has saved consumers from prices on multiple fronts. To the extent that Biden's Federal Trade Commission and Justice Department uh, uh, have blocked abusive mergers, that has restrained price increases. This will end. Reasons why stock markets booked record one-day increases after Trump's election was that Wall Street now expects a renewed merger boom with consumer prices. Trump's deportation policies will be hugely inflationary in industries such as agriculture, construction, meat packing, uh, manufacturing, skincare, and home care. The workforce is heavily influenced. In the wake of this fall's hurricanes, there are already shortages of construction workers to rebuild. Deportation will increase those workers, bidding up the cost of labor. That will be good for some of the non-migrant workers, but it will increase prices. Global climate change will also increase prices. MAGA doesn't believe in climate change, but that hasn't stopped it from intensifying. As we have reported, many insurance companies have increased their premiums, in part for profit taking, but also because of losses from floods, fires, and storms. This will only worsen. So will the cost of hardening the electricity grid, which will cycle through to consumers in the form of higher utility bills. Likewise, the cost of cleanup. The more labor scarcity, the more the cost. The continuation of Trump's tax cuts will increase the federal deficit. Trump has talked about offsetting program cuts, but he is already having second thoughts when it comes to the biggest ticket items like Social Security. To the extent that he does follow through on program cuts, say to Medicare or child care or home care subsidies, consumers will experience those increased out of pocket costs as inflationary. Within broader limits, increased deficits per se need not be inflationary, but the Fed thinks otherwise. If Trump's budget includes large increases in the federal deficit, we can expect the Fed to cease by cutting rates. As Trump's other policies increase the rate of inflation, that will also spook the Fed into tightening money. Higher interest rates not only slow the economy, they themselves are inflationary because they raise borrowing costs on things like mortgages and auto loans. And I haven't even mentioned Trump's tariffs. The proposed 20% across the board increases would be massively inflationary. A 20% increase on the retail price of all imports and imported components. I'd be surprised if Trump follows through on that scale. He may be an economic illiterate, but his political advisors will surely point out the costs and risks. But there will very likely be some tariff hikes. In short, inflation is almost certain to be far higher under Trump than it was under Biden. A smart Democratic Party would let the world know about that every single day. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Well, it says actually perish by the sword. I'm sorry I
Mhm.
missed that. Yeah, perish is such a nice word to use in that instance. So I think this article is very well taken. It points out sources of inflation, points out they're going to be exacerbated by the tariffs. and it points out that if you don't want inflation, you certainly shouldn't have voted for the Republicans. So here you've got it.
People were just so fed up.
Yes. And they were fed up with inflation.
And they
And
didn't see where the Democrats were there for them.
yes, and they looked to Trump because they thought that he was going to stop inflation. And of course, his very policies, as was outlined in that article, his very policies are going to stimulate inflation. And he has no clue about this.
Right. I just hope there's decent people in there to advise him.
Okay, Evelina asks, isn't price gouging the reason for inflation? It was one of the reasons for inflation. One main reason for inflation, probably what started it off, was uh, the freezing of supply lines. That was probably most important factor. Then, when companies saw that they could blame inflation on uh, the problems with supply lines, they began to price gouge. In other words, first the disruptions in the price line came, and then the price gouging occurred to people, and they went on a price gouging binge. That's what I think was the problem. So, do we have any more comments?
And the one thing too with the supply chain problems, remember Trump was given the stimulus checks, and Biden didn't really see the need for that.
Right. And Biden's need for it was so that people could feel that they could cover the inflationary costs. And Biden needed that time because the inflation abated by itself beginning in 2023 and running into 2024 and through 2024 we could see the supply chains starting to come back. And Biden just didn't see that it was going to take a while for it to come back. And in the intervening time, he had to be cushioning the shock for people. And he never did that.
No, he didn't. And he didn't have people advisors around him to tell him anything.
Yes, because none of the advisors he had around were MMT economists.
Right.
He didn't have any. I mean, he knew about them because they were part of, Bernie Sanders' effort, but he saw fit to ignore what they had to say.
And, so there you have it. People felt it. And he was just too busy with Ukraine and everywhere else.
Yes, he was. Much too busy. Okay, any broader comments? It just seemed like the Biden administration missed a number of opportunities to make things better for people that in turn have contributed to Harris's win.
He didn't focus on the U.S. He was too busy with foreign policy. And I don't know who in his
Oh,
administration was supposed to be focusing on here.
okay. I think he focused on domestic policy for much of the first year. But I also think that when he became uh, very frustrated by domestic politics, it was then that he really turned to foreign policy. And that was a disaster, certainly.
Yes, it was a disaster. So he couldn't handle domestic policies, so he just tossed people away.
Yes.
That really was a terrible approach.
And it's why the Democrats lost. It is why the Democrats lost.
Right, because that is something they used to always run on, that they were better where, the economy is concerned, better on domestic policies.
And yes, and they still run on that. But we have to face it. Both sides are terrible when it comes to domestic policy.
Exactly, because they keep going to the right.
They keep moving more and more to the right. That is right. Absolutely true.
And like we've said before with Chuck Schumer and the rest of them, they want to pick up what is it? Republicans, suburban moderates.
Yes. Okay. I can't believe that was such a big mistake as it was.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was so incredible when they looked at the statistics, okay, of the election. They found that 95% of the Republicans still voted for Trump. So they wasted all that time trying to get the people to defect, and they would not do it. Sure, they had a lot of elite types
Right.
who did it, who endorsed her, okay, and a lot of them, who tried to do what they could. But at the same time, uh, I think they just really screwed up.
They did, because it was a big turnoff. It was a turnoff for a lot of people to see Kamala Harris hanging around with the Cheneys. That just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
It was a turnoff for Democratic voters,
Yeah,
certainly. Okay, and they didn't see that it could be a turnoff, for Democratic voters.
exactly. And especially, too, when you think about, the George Bush years, George W. years, um, and all that was said, the fear of Dick Cheney, they put all I mean, people remember all that. Um, what was said about him, what he did, what his record was.
So Evelina says one of Trump's claims is that stopping expenditure abroad will bring money to invest uh, uh, at home. Uh, well, I don't know because there's still going to be a lot of things to invest in abroad. In other words, we may stop our military expenditures abroad
Right.
unless he creates specific policies to stop the private sector people from investing abroad. They're going to continue to invest abroad if they think the returns are higher there. Evelina says, what will that translate into? Uh, I don't think it's going to necessarily translate into more investment here at home. Now, of course, if Trump has programs for government investment here at home, then we're going to increase our investments at home. But I don't think he can rely on the private sector
Hmm.
to increase our investments here. Or if he does rely on the private sector to do that, I think he's a fool. Of course, if he spends a lot of government money to do that, then the private sector will happily comply and join up. So, they can get their share of the profits. So Lana Del Hates the Clock said, did you see the series of tweets from Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy? I think I tagged you. Well, thank you for tagging me, but okay, I hadn't seen those tweets as yet. I will look at my tweet here and see. Keith Ellison says Dems are about to hire a leader. What qualities should be looking for? So here is Keith Ellison. He's trying to run for the chairmanship of the DNC again. If you remember last time, they blocked him with Marty Perez. So Mike Pompeo on Twitter says, I will lift my voice to sing your praise, oh my strength. Psalm 59, verse 17, hashtag Sunday Scripture. And Scott Ritter replied to Mr. Pompous Pompeo and said, go away already. Well, that was good for Scott. Caroline McClanahan had a great weekend with Stephanie Kelton, recharging and thinking about how we can be a positive force in the future. People are hungry for new ideas in housing, healthcare, food security, education, energy, and jobs. And Carolyn is a friend of Stephanie's. They got to be friends, a few years back. When Carolyn outlined plans for healthcare reform, which involved expenditures from the bottom up, making the healthcare system a lot more efficient. Our policy proposals looked like they were pretty good. Not as good as Medicare for All, I don't think. But if enacted in concert, with Medicare for All, I think they would have lowered costs. And so a lesser percentage of our national expenditures would have gone to healthcare. And that would have been a good thing because the percentage now is too high. It's more than 18%. Alex asks, should President Trump pardon Edward Snowden and Julian Assange? Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. But of course, since he doesn't have much of a brain, he might not do it. APAC says, thank you, Richie Torres, for your strong pro-Israel leadership, unyielding support of the U.S.-Israel relationship, and moral clarity. Yeah, what's morally clear is that Richie Torres was one of the most egregious prostitutes in Congress. That is what's morally clear. And the APAC tracker took the opportunity from that tweet to tweet back, Richie Torres, congressman in the poorest congressional district in the nation, is too busy spewing propaganda for Israel to actually do anything for his constituents. And there's a graphic with Richie Torres's face on it. He's the representative in the New York 15th and he received $1,340,294 from the pro-Israel lobby. So there he is, full of moral clarity. So now I come to Chris Murphy's tweets. That was a cataclysm. Electromap wipeout. Senate D practical ceiling is now 52 seats. Ours is 62. Time to rebuild the left. We are out of touch with the crisis of meaning, purpose, fueling MAGA. We refuse to pick big fights. Our tent is too small. One, some early thoughts. I'll see if I can find any more of Chris's tweets here. No, I don't see any. But Jackson Hinkle does tweet. No Haley, no Bill Barr, no Pompeo, no Paul Ryan, no Mike Pence, no Tom Cotton, no John Belton, no Dana Stroul, no Mike Rogers, and no Mitt Romney. And then showing more, no Marco Rubio, no Rudy Giuliani, no Chris Christie, no Mike Johnson, no James Jeffries, no Kevin McCarthy, no Lindsey Graham, no Mitch McConnell, no
Hmm.
neocons ever. And then he tagged at real Donald Trump and at Donald Trump, J. Trump Jr. So that was interesting. And somebody else tweeted, no, Elliot Engel too.
Mhm.
Trump got $1,593 uh, 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 from the Israel lobby. So he didn't get as much as Richie Torres. That's how much of a prostitute Richie Torres was. I'm trying to find the tweets from Lana that tagged me, but I can't find them. Maybe I'll try my notifications and maybe they'll be there. Nope, I don't see them right now. So that'll have to wait for later. I think it's probably time to say goodnight, even though we remain at 38 people. Uh, Solana says, I thought Keith said he wasn't running for DNC chair today. I don't know. He seemed to be hinting that he's going to run. Lana says, I also sent the link on Twitter DM. Okay, I will look there. Facebook user Evelina says, maybe Richie Torres claims Hebrew ancestry like AOC. And Evelina says, then there Fuentes. Does he claim Hebrew ancestry too, Evelina? Lana says, unfortunately, he still picks Uh, Vivek and Elon. Ick. Lana says, D, we can hear you breathing. I don't think that's D. I think that may be Colby.
Yeah, it's probably Colby. I got all the dogs here.
Yeah, if Colby was there, I think that was Colby breathing. I noticed that before. Okay, I think we're about done. Okay, unless you want something else, Steve.
No, I think you covered a lot, and just remind everybody to hit the like button, subscribe, and share, share, share. It's so important to share and share the information what's going on, and especially we talk the topics we talk about because the mainstream media, the Western media, doesn't discuss these topics.
Yes, it's true. They don't. Yeah, they don't. And I mean, they're missing the news. The mainstream media has become incompetent at actually delivering the news to us. Okay, it's a selection problem. They don't want to deliver news that makes a bad impression. So they just avoid that.
And they have an angle that they want people to. I guess they want you to believe a certain angle of the news, the way the government wants you to see things, and they just curve to that angle.
Yes, they cleave to that angle.
Yes. And also, yeah, with Joe Firestone, his Patreon, he has a patreon.com, Joe_Firestone. Um, if you'd like to contribute, help Joe with his show, and it's a lot of work he does.
Oh, thank you, Dee. I certainly appreciate it. Uh, I do need to grow my Patreon account, and I do need people to kindly share, like, and subscribe uh, uh, these broadcasts, and you should do the same for Dee Piers. Around the world, Dee and Friends. She works very hard also. She is on for most of the week. Okay, I am with her some days of the week,
Yes, you are.
but there are some days I'm not with her. But fortunately, she gets some company from Madeline
Yes,
on those days, and maybe from Greg.
yes. It's always good to have someone to talk to when you're covering these topics.
Yes. So we have a group of friends we can talk to.
Yes. Yeah, it's good to see everybody here tonight.
It was. It was very good to see Facebook user Evelina here, and it was good to see Bob Copeland, even though uh, he became uncomfortable because I was covering Pepe Escobar today.
Good to see Lana.
Very good to see Lana, of course, and Cora. Cora was here.
Yes. And people didn't, and for the people that don't comment, it's good to have you here, listening to what we're, discussing. And I guess on that note, I'm going to say good night and good night, Bonnie.
Okay, good night, Dee, and thank you again.
Oh,
Uh,
you're welcome.
okay, don't forget also that Dee has uh, it's a Cash App account, correct?
Yeah, Cash App, it's Dolores Peers, Peers. Yeah, Dolores Dolores.
And I have a Buy Me a Coffee, which is crossing the screen right now,
Yes.
as well as a Patreon account. So everybody have a very good night. Will you be back tomorrow night, Dee?
There's a possibility that I will.
Okay. I will be back on Tuesday night
Yes, you will.
and
Tuesday at 9 o'clock.
at 9 o'clock, and I think I will have a lot of IR news then. IR being international relations,
Okay.
because usually there's a huge amount of IR news at the beginning of the week. And anyway, every day we're expecting to see an Iranian
Response.
missile attack on Israel, a really huge attack
Hmm.
this time, uh, as much as 1,000 missiles.
Exactly. We're always preparing for that.
Yes, we think the Iranians are serious about that this time.
Yes. And that will take care of a lot of issues.
It probably will take care of a lot of issues. Probably. It is going to be interesting uh, at a minimum. Uh, okay, you know the riots came in Amsterdam.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a question about whether that was a Mossad operation.
I think it was.
Uh,
It seems so planned out.
yeah. So, okay, I don't know why they would move to other countries. It's so stupid.
It is. And what I always think is the fact of your average person, your Jewish person, is just leading their life. And here they do things, and it's not good for the Jewish community. It's not good for people at all. They're saying themselves Israelis, and they're Jewish, anti-Semitic, and all this stuff, and they're provoking things. And not every Jewish person is into all of that. And I hate when people do things and there's people that aren't involved. It just makes the whole community and everybody not safe.
Yes, I think that I think the Jewish community is far less safe now than it was, uh, let's say, 30 years ago, okay, or 40 years ago. Now we see a rise of anti-Semitism, and frankly, given what's going on, it's no wonder.
Right. They're doing things, they're provoking, and it puts a bad image out there. And there's people that can't separate it and realize that not everybody that's Jewish feels that way. That everybody's not the same. Everybody's not a monolith.
Yeah, I was watching Mahmoud OG today,
Okay.
and he was very carefully making a distinction between the Zionists, okay, and other Jews.
So that was good. That's good. That was a good way to communicate.
Oh, he was very clear about it and very fastidious. And of course, he pointed out that the Netanyahu administration was trying to um, confound the distinction, trying as hard as they could to confound the distinction.
Hmm. Mhm.
So,
I guess,
on that note, we should say good night again.
yes. Good night, everyone.
Okay, good night, everyone. And we'll see you tomorrow night or Tuesday. Okay, good night.